Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for coming. I'm Soheila Bana with West Contra Costa Fire Safe Council. We are so happy to be working on becoming FireWise and having neighbors from El Cerrito tonight, Sue, Duncan, and Orinda, Marc Evans, to tell us about their experience about becoming FireWise. So I leave it to you, Sue and Marc, who wants to start first. They're going to talk about their experience, and then you're welcome to ask questions.
Okay, Marc, you want to get started?
Sure. A quick introduction, Marc Evans. I'm a FireWise leader for a neighborhood in North Orinda of about 110 families. I'm also the chairperson for an informal organization of 25 FireWise neighborhoods in Orinda with over 2,000 homes, and I'm affiliated with another 4 FireWise neighborhoods over in Moraga, since we have the same fire district. So we probably represent close to 3,000 people or homes in FireWise neighborhoods.
Wow, I'm sorry. Does it mean there are 3,000 homes that are already FireWise?
Yes.
Wow, congratulations. Great success. Sorry for interruption, but
So
great.
the question I have is for the people on the call, who's interested or who is in a FireWise neighborhood right now? I know Sue Duncan is, but is anybody else in a FireWise neighborhood?
I'm Susan Hamilton. I am.
My friend.
Hello.
So Susan's a FireWise leader. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Susan.
Hi there. I'm Susan Hamilton. I live in Orinda, and our neighborhood is called Camino Don Miguel. It's a neighborhood in a big circle, and it's not an easy walking neighborhood, but we're a close neighborhood nonetheless, and we're proud of getting the FireWise designation. We're happy about it. And Marc, it was just approved. I wanted to tell you. Remember, ours kind of for our renewal, so I'm happy about that. It's all good.
Thank you, Susan, and thank you for joining us today. We appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. I hope you don't mind that I'm still having a glass of wine from dinner.
Don't worry about it.
Bring some for all of us.
Okay, so the rest of you are just interested in trying to understand what a FireWise neighborhood is and then how to create one? Okay, so if you've heard, FireWise is a National Fire Protection Association program. It's available in the entire United States. It seems to be pretty popular here in California. There's some places that are really energetic, Marin, San Luis Obispo, some other places in Northern California. And as we all know, that it's because of all the fires in California. It's the short list is a voluntary community program. To apply for it, you get recognized by the National Fire Protection Association. The purpose of the program is to help property owners work together to implement improvements that reduced wildfire hazards. By doing the things that this program helps you work together on, it significantly helps you improve the chances of your home surviving a wildfire. And basically, you know, people in these FireWise neighborhoods work together because it's not a single home. It's, I think, a good example of, say your home is here in the middle and you have maybe 4 or 6 neighbors. So if one of those homes is not prepared, it's going to increase the risk of your home getting burned down. So I know years ago, people were more community oriented. It's a little different sometimes these days, but this particular aspect of living in the area we live here in the East Bay, it's very important to work as a community. Okay, so what are the benefits of FireWise? Well, first, you're more likely if you're an active FireWise neighborhood to survive a wildfire. What you do with that is you're going to learn from others how to reduce fire fuels on your property. You'll learn about what you can do to help harden your home to help it survive a fire, such as ember resistant vents. And then you coordinate with your neighbors and the other organizations in your location how to prepare and evacuate if there's an emergency. And that can also apply to earthquakes, but as you know, the wildfire in Oakland Hills and other areas, no matter what you did, you had to get out of there. And so learning how to work together as a neighborhood, one of the key things in many neighborhoods is we have common access roads, and there's going to be a lot of traffic. So it's really important that you work together, understand where the warnings come from, et cetera, et cetera. So basically there's three things you work on: fuel reduction, home hardening, emergency response. And then the fourth benefit is, you may have noticed in California that home insurers are providing discounts for being a part of an active FireWise neighborhood. Both State Farm and USAA do that. And it's even thought in the future, you know, and you probably hear about people in our neighborhoods who lose their insurance. So I think trying to be proactive and improving the insurability of your house through FireWise is something worthwhile looking into. Okay, I just ran on for 5 minutes. Questions, comments?
Thank you very much. We'll let the other guest speakers talk too, and then we take questions.
Okay, thank you, Sohila.
Of course.
Okay, I'll pick up. My name is Sue Duncan. I am the co-founder with my husband of Make El Cerrito Fire Safe. We are not a fire safe council. When we made our name in September of 18, when we formed, we didn't know about fire safe councils. We were starting out as babes in the woods. But since then, in the 4+ years, we've learned a lot. One of the things I learned about was the FireWise program. I started our FireWise neighborhood our application was accepted in November of 2019. We were the first FireWise neighborhood on this side of the hills. There were none in Berkeley, Oakland, Kensington, or Richmond. And now finally, Berkeley and Oakland and Kensington are trying to get some going. I highly encourage you to take the time and the energy to do it. You get to know your neighbors. I don't know how much any of you know about fire conditions, but I have talked to our fire department a lot. I have attended the Oakland Fire Safe meetings. I've learned a lot. There's still a lot more, and I'm certainly not an expert, but just so you know that one of the reasons you want to protect your home in the first 5 feet around your home of having non-combustible materials in the first 5 feet around any decks is because 65 to 90% of the home ignitions in wildfire are from the embers that fly anywhere from 1/2 mile to 2 miles or more ahead of the main fire. So you've seen pictures probably of the horrific evacuation videos of people trying to leave Paradise, Malibu, some places in Mendocino, Sonoma counties and Southern California with the embers raining down on you. So think of your house with those embers raining down on you, and where your leaves are up against your house, that's where the embers will come. So you want to have the first 5 feet around your house clear. You want to, on red flag days, take potted plants, flammable doormats, everything. But FireWise teaches you a lot of this. They have some amazing free, once you become a FireWise neighborhood, lots of good free pamphlets that you can write to, spread them out. You can pass them out to your neighbors, encourage others to harden your homes. Marc mentioned putting 1/8 inch metal screens in all your vents, your attic vents and your crawl spaces, how to go to Marin Fire Safe or Oakland Fire Safe, learn about fire escaping. And FireWise has some really good online classes to watch, to learn about evacuations, to learn about home hardening, retrofitting your home. So what you have to do to become a FireWise neighborhood, it can be anywhere from 8 houses to 2,400 houses. And it does have to be contiguous. Everybody within that neighborhood does not have to agree to participate, but remind your neighbors that if one house catches on fire, that's producing embers, that's producing radiant heat and direct flames. And those are the 3 ways houses catch. And I have heard our firefighters who have fought in the Oakland Hills fire and all the other Northern Californians that the fire in Coffee Park in Santa Rosa was a game changer for the firefighters. They didn't think that flatland housing developments would go, and it went up. And they said once a neighborhood like that goes up, it's almost impossible to stop the fire. So these are things you should take into consideration and why it's more important to harden your home, reduce the vegetation, and FireWise is really helpful with this. When I first started it, I called them several times. They were wonderful in helping me on how to start it. You have to do a neighborhood assessment. What we did was walk. They give you things to look at, like what kind of roofs, what kind of windows, what does it look like they have, what kind of gutters, are the roofs clear of vegetation? Just do a walk by. Obviously, you can't tell sometimes if the windows are hardened, but they give you a list of things to evaluate your neighborhood that way and evaluate your neighborhood vegetation wise, and then you fill it out to the best of your extent. It's an approximation. And then you need to write for California a 3-year action plan after you've looked at what your neighborhood is like. You talk to your fire department, ask them for suggestions, and you have to do a 3-year plan. And in each year you have to address 4 topics. And this is very well spelled out in the application process, but just to give you a heads up: education and outreach goals, home hardening goals, fuel reduction goals, and evacuation planning and wildfire preparedness. So once you do your evaluation and you talk to the fire department, they can probably help you create those goals. One for each of the 3 years. I mean, each of those for the 3 years. I just did our 3rd year. You have to renew every year. So to renew, if necessary, you update your goals, but you only have to update those every 3 years. But you do have to keep track of hours and money spent. Hours that residents spent. If your neighbor went out and chopped down their junipers, yay, for 5 hours, they get 5 hours. So you have to have somebody willing to keep track of hours and money spent. Hours are anything that the residents do to reduce vegetation, do education. If they've hired guys to come in and clean vegetation or do window repair. We had one house put in all new double pane windows. That really put us over easily over our goal of how many hours you have to renew. But you also get to keep track of and use money spent, whether you bought a new hoe, you bought a new chainsaw, or you paid XYZ vegetation clearing, like $1,200. You get to you put that money toward in your pot of keeping track of this. So you need one person that's willing to keep track of that. And you also say if 3 guys were there for 4 hours, that's 12 hours. So that is one thing that is necessary to renew. I would suggest that I've heard a few of you engage your neighbors first and see if you can get a few of them engaged, and maybe start small, because FireWise always lets you expand your neighborhood. We added 4 houses when another neighbor down the street heard about it. And so it's fine. You do have to do a map, but a young man in our neighborhood, I can't do anything on the computer. He took a map of El Cerrito and drew it and then submitted it. So there is some work to do it initially and to keep track, and then to plan, depending on how comfortable you are with COVID, neighborhood meetings, but I would get them engage some of your neighbors first, so that you have at least some people to help you. And maybe as your other neighbors see what's going on and they see that their house insurance is not becoming non-renewed. In El Cerrito, we've had a fair amount of non-renewals. But We've also had other insurance companies come in and say, if you want to renew, we want that tree, that tree, that tree, all those junipers, and the first 5 feet of fence and that wooden gate that's attached to your house removed. So that's another reason to become a FireWise and start working with your neighbors to keep your insurance. And also to reduce the possibility, like Mark said, of your house igniting, because they consider fences like fuses. If the fences catch on fire, it goes right to your house. I think that's about all I have to say right now. I'll be glad to answer questions. I don't know if I was all over the place with that, looking at my notes again. It would be really nice, most of us in our group are older, to try to engage younger families too. And I know that they're usually busy with work and kids, but we have a young family in our FireWise neighborhood that just moved in, and she's gung-ho, and she's gotten the kids to help, the teenagers. She also reached out. So she's reached out to actually 4-H, and 4-H, I didn't know there was a 4-H in the neighborhood from Berkeley came in. So
we're not.
So you have to be creative and try to involve people, but it's a slow process, but it's very worth it. That's all right now.
Thank you very much, Sue. I appreciate it. Susan or Patti, which one of you would like to go next? Susan?
Susan, you can go ahead.
Patti, go ahead.
Okay, I'll go. I'm Patti Juachon, and I live in the La Colina neighborhood of Sobrante, just above Jack in the Box, Gabriel. I have young kids off screen right now. And I guess we are in the process of getting FireWise certified. So I can talk about why we made the decision and what we've done up until this point. And just going off of what Sue said around engaging your neighbors, probably 5 years ago, we went from a neighborhood where people didn't wave to each other when we were driving by to being on first name basis. And that was through the organizing of a few neighbors who just thought, you know, we're going to be better off if we know who we are and in advance of meeting each other, whatever the crisis might be. And so we started with a block party, and we started to map out who lives where, and do you need help if there is a crisis, and actually put that on paper to the extent that people were interested. We had, you know, a Halloween parade for the young kids. We had work parties where we would share our green bins and fill up each other's, you know, kind of a pickup truck would collect our bins and go to a house where we were doing some work, and just really grassroots fire prevention. I think the benefit for the FireWise program is that it gives us some structure to be able to prioritize where our projects were. You know, we know who needs help and who wants help, but when we're looking at bigger projects, it's really hard to prioritize. And the benefit of having the fire captains walk through the neighborhood with us and educate us all at once, so that it's not just one person trying to convince another to, you know, remove the shrubbery around their house or something. It just put us in a different frame of mind and thinking about it, and gave us a little bit more structure to plan next year's projects. So we were, even prior to becoming FireWise, we pursued a fire safe grant through the Diablo Council, and it's a lot of work. I will just say, I don't want to dissuade anybody, but the record keeping and the corralling of people and the quote the selection and all of those things. So knowing that those hours can be put towards something even greater through the FireWise program is an extra incentive. And obviously the end goal is that we're keeping our homes and keeping safe.
Thank you. Would you like to tell us how many neighbors are participating?
Well, formally on the application, we have 7. I think that's the minimum. But, you know, we have a neighborhood listserv, like just a Google group, and that's, I don't know, probably 80 people at this point that are sent notices of like, hey, we're going to have a work party and bring your tools on Saturday, or, you know, any number of projects like that happen. So I consider that part of the fire prevention is just that community building part, and that's a much bigger group.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Susan, would you like to tell us about your experience? Susan Hamilton, are you here? You need to unmute first, please.
There's
Okay.
2, there you go. There's 2 Susans. So Susan Drexler Price, you go first.
No,
Okay.
no, that's
Well-
Susan wants to become a FireWise. We would like to hear from you. I meant you, Susan Hamilton. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Susan, thank you for giving
You're
me
welcome.
the floor here.
I had questions. We don't, so it's okay. It's better
Okay.
for you to go.
So I am very grateful that the FireWise program here in Orinda started before our neighborhood got involved. We were very fortunate to have one woman who dove in. She became Orinda's Volunteer of the Year, and she was my friend, Melanie Light. And she kicked off the FireWise program throughout Orinda. And Marc could probably tell you more about how many there are. We were probably the 10th neighborhood, and my friend Melanie was like, you got to do this, you got to do this. So I dove in. I've lived here 32 years. My neighborhood is very mixed age-wise. I asked a couple of people to help me, and I have to say it wasn't as hard as what I'm hearing all of you talk about now. The FireWise requirements are minimal compared to what we were already doing in Orinda, because we're already in extreme fire danger in our neighborhoods, the way the winds come down and, you know, all different things that are going on. We're very, very aware, and we're very conscientious. There's a couple of people that don't do work around their yards, but like somebody said, or Marc said, we are judged, our insurance is judged not by us, but by our neighbors. And they actually have drones going over our house now to see what's going on in our neighborhood. So we're all incentivized to take care of each other. And I love my neighbors, and we're not the closest group, but we became closer because we all wanted to be safe. So we jumped in and we organized. We have 38 homes on our circle, and I'm so grateful that, you know, we have an email list, and I'm the communicator of the group, and I do the applications. But the FireWise requirements for us, and even like the volunteer hours and how much you pay, are really minimal. I just kind of guessed on how much my neighbors do, because they're fabulous. I mean, even when you clean up your yards and trim a couple of trees, you meet the requirements. It's really, I just want to say it wasn't that hard, because I don't want to discourage anybody because of the work. I guess Melanie kind of kicked it off and did the hardest work at the beginning, and I came up the rear. And we already knew about it. And I'm just so grateful if you have a neighborhood watch program, whatever it is. So our circle, like I said, our community is not a walking neighborhood. So we got this list together. I put together our application. Our city, Melanie actually kicked off. She got a sales tax passed for fire prevention, which is unheard of these days. It's a 0.5-cent sales tax. We have a chipper program. Our sales tax pays for a chipper, and you could request this chipper to come with a couple of houses and chip everything for free. I am just so grateful. that all this was in place and it has helped our neighborhood come together. So that's the good news. The hard news is it's hard for people to come together. So people are really busy, young families, older people, people have different things. We've had a couple of talks, like we had somebody from the city, from Cerrito and Orinda Fire District, come and talk to us about fire prevention and walk the neighborhood. They do that gladly to help us. So we organized that, and we had a group of people walking up and down the neighborhood. That was wonderful. We organized a get together about fire hardening, and we had probably 25 people show up for that. And we just stood outside. It was during COVID, and we had wine and snacks, and it was really, really easy. And then we had other kinds of communications. So we have a monthly meeting in Orinda about FireWise and what's going on. We had somebody else volunteer to attend those meetings and communicate to all of us. We had another person volunteer to pay attention to what's going on with evacuations. That's super hard here in Orinda. It's just been challenging. They did a whole thing, a whole first pass that didn't work at all. And it took a really long time to get the second pass going. But she communicates about that, about, which way to go, right? Like if you're going to evacuate, do you take a left or right outside your front door, right? And there's no clear answer to that because it depends on literally where the wind's blowing. But we communicate often. My challenge is I don't hear from people when I communicate. And that's frustrating because out of 38 homes, I don't know everybody. I don't know the young families. And, I'm outside doing some yard work and somebody comes by and they said, "Oh, you're the FireWise lady. I'm so-and-so." I was like, "Who are you? Where do you live?" Like, I didn't even know that. And that's kind of frustrating. I wish I knew everybody, but I don't. But I feel like we're doing the best we could and it's good enough for now. We're way ahead of the game. We had a lot of people in Orinda lose their insurance. We lost our insurance. We had farmers. We didn't lose it the first year when I applied for us. And I asked my farmers insurance agent that we've had for 30 years, like, are we going to lose our insurance? And he says, "No, you're not on the list this year." I said, "Okay." So we made it the first year, but the second year we just lost our insurance. So we scrambled for a few months. We found a State Farm policy. There is a California insurance exchange that you could go to if you can't find any insurance. It's lousy. They don't, it's hardly any coverage for a lot of money, but it's better than nothing if you need it for your mortgage. But we found a State Farm policy and it's fun. And so that's happening all around the world. There's hundreds and hundreds of people that are losing their insurance. And that's motivating. People pay attention. And we've had a couple of meetings when we were kicking this off and everybody's worried about losing their homeowners insurance, right? So that's a motivator. Like, we're going to have this thing about FireWise. Please come. And if you're concerned about losing your homeowners insurance, everybody came. That first meeting we had, everybody came in our neighborhood. And we were grateful about that. So now we have everybody's emails, we communicate. I don't know everybody, but I feel safe. It's not a perfect neighborhood. There are people that don't do the job. They don't trim their stuff. They don't harden their home. We passed out all that material. We communicate as much as we could. And some people just don't do it. And that's frustrating. And we also have parcels in our neighborhood that are owned by private citizens. They're owned by a country club. They're owned by PG&E. They're owned by East Bay Mud. And they're not doing it. Like, they're not cleaning out the Monterey Pines. They're not cleaning up the neighborhood. So we need somebody to go after them too, because their lack of hardening affects us, right? When that drone comes over and that's down the street from me, it affects me. And maybe that's why I lost my homeowners. I don't know. But it's pulled us together. And it wasn't that hard. We just went through our renewal process. Marc was very helpful because they got really busy and it took a while for our renewal. And I did that about estimating how much work was done and using the chipper. It wasn't that hard. So I just want to encourage everybody to jump in because it's not killer. I just want to encourage everybody to do it. We all feel safer and we all feel closer, and we're glad we did it.
Thank you very much, Susan. Excellent information. I just wanted to say briefly that we established the West Contra Costa Fire Safe Council exactly for the reason you mentioned, that PG&E and EBMA don't do their homework. So if there are any complaints, let me know. They are on our advisory board and they've been very responsive. And you're
Okay.
welcome to join the board or come when they, in our advisory board meeting, because we would like him to be good neighbors and do their best. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I would like to go back to Marc. Marc, you only spoke for a few minutes. Would you like to add to what you already said before we go to questions?
You're on mute, Marc.
I agree with Susan and the others. The first step is just got to organize your neighborhood. No one else can do that. So you got to find the person or 3 people that can walk around the neighborhood and share information. There's lots of good information out there. But then you get them together. The other thing that's really important is your fire district or your fire department. You need to partner with them because they're the ones that are going to come out and really explain the theory and the importance of all this sort of stuff. I mean, we can explain it to people, but when they're drive up in their fire truck or wear their hats, it's serious. And so we've been fortunate to partner, and I hope you other cities have the same opportunity to work closely with their fire departments. That's sort of.
Excuse me 1 second, Marc. I just want to say something. I felt very fortunate that our fire department was very familiar with the FireWise application and had a whole template that I just tapped into for our application. And there were parts of it that they did it for me. So I didn't even have to do a big chunk of it. I was just so grateful. It's like they were 100% on top of it.
I'm glad to say, I'm glad you said that. And I'm glad to say that actually our Richmond City Fire Department and also Contra Costa County Fire Department for the unincorporated area, they agreed to do the same. So they will come in and do the assessment report for the neighbors that want to become FireWise.
Right.
Get the whole thing is started because we were just at the beginning of the road and would like to move forward.
And they
Okay,
have a template. You just like plug in their template. It's fabulous.
very good. Thank you very much. Go ahead, Patti. You want to say something?
Just on that, having your local, I don't know what he was called, but Captain Giddis, Chris Giddis is our local contact for our FireWise. Yeah, well, I don't know what his role is in regards to FireWise USA, but he's been really helpful because I thought that it was just a matter of uploading what he provided to us, like you said, Susan, but in fact, our first try got denied because I hadn't filled in the fillable form with the same information that was on the document. So I got a little frustrated with the portal requirements. But it was Chris that was able to tell me why did we get declined, because he just was able to pick up the phone with them. And so that's a really good relationship to cultivate for folks if you're going through the FireWise certification. And even talking, one of the recommendations for us in our 3-year plan is to do an evacuation drill for our specific neighborhood. And, we will definitely be working with our local fire department for that. So that's something I don't think we can do on our own.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. Actually, evacuation drills are another thing we would like to have talk with Orinda Moraga neighborhoods later on at a different session and learn from them. I learned that they're doing the virtual drills now,
Mhm.
which is interesting and effective.
Very good.
Okay, thank you very much. I have some questions, but before I ask my questions, I wonder if anybody has any questions. No? Okay, but go ahead, Susan. And then first Susan and then Pam.
And me too.
And Corinne.
Oh, okay, and Oreen.
I realize the first step is organization. And so I've tried a little bit to do a little bit of organizing here to try to get 2 or 3 people. I live in El Sobrante Hills on Morningside. And the first few people I talked to were very cool about it. But when I started talking about having the fire department involved and coming and inspect their homes, it seems like I said the wrong thing. Because what I got from those people was nobody wants to hear that. They're afraid of that. And they're afraid of the fire department coming and telling them that they have to do this, that, or the other thing for their house. And I'm sure one of it has to do with finances, because they can't afford, like our neighborhood in our block is full of juniper trees and all the kinds of trees that are definitely the kind that people will want to get rid of, and their entire front yards are full of them. And so I do have now 2 women who have, even though we haven't been able to do it so far, they have promised me that after the first of the year, the 3 of us were going to get together in order to try to do something. But I wondered if people have any suggestions of how, well, one, I want to know about, is there funding that could be gotten or talked about in terms of to help people who would join the FireWise and do some of these things but they can't afford it? And secondly, any suggestions of what you say to people, when you're actually doing the first organizing?
I'll second that question. What have you guys found to be the most effective way to engage the neighbors? Sahela's group came in and did an informational day. About half a dozen people, none of them followed up. I've had a poster up on our HOA poster board for 2 months now, absolutely 0 interest. So yeah, what's the best icebreaker that you guys have found who've been successful in organizing?
I wouldn't say it's a magic bullet, but making it fun and building on community connection has been what's kept us going at this for years now. So like I said, block parties, and when I'm talking about block party, like we have a little cone on one side and maybe 30 feet down, we have another cone, like it's pretty low key, but just neighbor to neighbor connections has been the thing that has built. Then it becomes like, I'm not just doing a chore because somebody's making me do it. It's, hey, I'm going to go hang out with some neighbors that I think are actually enjoyable to hang out with. So I don't mean to sound Pollyannish about it. It's actually how we've gotten the work done. And to answer Susan's question about that fear of inspection, the inspectors are very clear, and we were clear in the, we need to stop. In getting interest from people that they are not there to issue citations. They are not there to tell people this is an educational opportunity that they really value. And it's a great way to kind of tap into their knowledge about fire safety. And they'll just, we visited 3 homes. It's just amazing. And you come around, you come away from that with your eyes as big as saucers, like, holy moly, we've got work to do. So there's a little bit of a motivating factor in that visit. And start with what you have, I guess, is, even if it's 2 neighbors. I guess FireWise requires a certain number of neighbors, but before you get to the point of actually submitting something into the portal, 1 neighbor at a time is how it happened for us.
Okay.
I agree. You know, we did it with a couple of us first, and it was one of those things like show by example. We didn't pull in the fire department right off the bat. There's so much information you could download and pass out. It's like, this is why I'm doing this, and this is why I'm doing that. And have you ever thought about those junipers over there? And I guess we were lucky because we kicked off during COVID when we were all sheltering in place and we were stuck at home. And we used to meet on the street just to get out, you know, and see each other. And it was a good opportunity to talk about those kinds of things. You know, no, it's a little different. Everybody's a little busier, but it's like, you know, I just took out this and I just put in these screens. And did you see this brochure? And I wouldn't pull in the fire department until you're further along, because you're right. You know, people are just afraid of being told what to do. Nobody wants that. So I would show by example first.
And I would like to add to Susan and Oreen, if you want to walk your neighborhood, I'll be happy to join you and walk with you. I've been canvassing for months. I'm very good at it. So we can knock on doors.
Oh, yeah, no, you're gonna have much bigger issues in January, aren't you?
Yes.
You're gonna have
Yeah,
a lot
but-
more meetings. You're gonna have a lot more meetings. Well, I'm prepared to do that. A little bit of my concern though is, you know, I can tell you that there's at least 3 houses within my, you know, stone's throw where I'm gonna have a language barrier. And, you know, I speak this much Spanish and it's not gonna help. I need, you know, I need to speak Tagalog or Ilocano or Mandarin or something like that. And even apparently Nepalese across the street. So, you know, these are nice things to do, to say hello to your neighbors, but when that's as far as you can go, it's not that great. And so, yeah, so I'm gonna have to get a little bit more creative, I guess, with how this works. So, and, you know, I'm starting to clean up my own yard right now. So that may be something that I could just say, hey, I'm making sure that the left side of my house has got 5 feet of space, or, you know, I'm going to put rocks around the base of all of my wooden deck things. I don't know. And I'm going to try and use Nextdoor. It looks like we've got some stuff that on Nextdoor that people respond to. So I think that's one of my plans. May I ask a couple more questions, Sohila? Do we have time?
Sorry, Pam is ahead of you. Let her go
Okay, go ahead.
first, and then we'll come back to you. Pam, go ahead.
So I don't know if this is the right group to ask this question, but my hill was on fire. The whole hill was evacuated. I'm up on, you know, where Adachi Nursery goes across the street, goes up the hill. The whole hill was on fire. There were 13 fire trucks, and it was an airplane that put the fire out. So my comment, and perhaps somebody has an answer, or we need to find this out, maybe Sohila, it's your bailiwick. The fire trucks can't put out these fires. Nothing can put these fires out except an airdrop. So do we have airdrop backup? Because we can harden all we want, but when a fire's coming through with wind, the hardening isn't going to really stop it. But the airdrops really do put it out. Do we have that support? Do we have that infrastructure? I mean, that's where I think we really need to put some energy.
I'm
I
going
have-
to tell you that, sorry, East Bay Regional Parks District Fire Department does have a helicopter. Sorry,
And-
go ahead, Sue.
Yeah, we asked that a long time ago because we back our hill area backs Wildcat Canyon. And we were told by our fire marshal that yes, we would have airdrop if the CAL FIRE planes are not elsewhere in a bigger fire. And that like Sohila said, I think East Bay Regional Parks got a newer helicopter within the last few years. But other than that, from CAL FIRE, it depends what else the planes are doing.
Very good.
And just from personal knowledge, it also depends on, you know, the weather. If the wind is
Yeah.
too high, like what happened in Coffee Park, those birds can't fly.
Right,
So,
and
you
the
know,
Diablo winds do blow 30-40 miles an hour, and I
Yeah.
don't know the
So it's not a
the limits
panacea.
of when they ground the planes, but yes. So the answer is maybe, depends, unfortunately.
Thank you. Oreen, go ahead with your next question.
Do any of you guys have really good buy-in from your HOAs in the area? And how did you gain that buy-in from your HOAs?
Actually, I would like to add to that. How does it go? Orin lives in a house that has HOA, but is there a FireWise program for apartment complexes? And in general, how does it go with HOA?
I was rereading yesterday in preparation, the FireWise site again, and they do single families, HOAs, and apartment complexes. So they call them living units. And the living unit requirement is a minimum of 8 living units and up to 2,400 max in one neighborhood. So the answer is yes.
So, okay, that's really good
If
information.
you have a minimum of the 8.
Okay.
And like I said, calling them is really good. Plus, there are CAL FIRE has regional coordinators. And I've forgotten the name of it, but if you I can send you the name, or you can go. I think it's available on the FireWise site if you look, but you can also contact our Northern California regional CAL FIRE FireWise representative, and he can help you with that too. Because California has more stringent standards for becoming a FireWise neighborhood than some of the other states.
Oh.
So if you email me, I can give you the name and his phone number. But call FireWise and call him, and they were very helpful.
Thank you.
Thanks. Marianne's asking how close or how far could the houses be, like several blocks away is okay? I heard it from one of our fire marshals that the idea is to start with houses, even though they're a little far apart, and gradually fill in. But I don't know the exact answer. Sue, Mark, Susan?
Well, when we started ours, it specifically said that you drew the map around the neighborhood and it had to be contiguous. In other words, it had to be like a circle or a square. Couldn't just be one here, one here, one here, one here, within your neighborhood. But now everybody within that neighborhood does not have to participate. And when you're talking to your neighbors, I would make it clear that it's not a requirement. And just because they are within your FireWise neighborhood, they don't have to participate. They won't be made to do things. It's all volunteer. And maybe when they see a few of their neighbors working, they might get inspired, or they might just say, forget it, I'm not doing anything. It is not a requirement for any resident within your border of your FireWise neighborhood to participate. It's not mandatory. So you could make that clear that they don't have to do anything. Once
So I
they're
would like to add that a natural way to set up a FireWise neighborhood is look at who has to where you have to evacuate. If you're all going down the same road at the same time, that's a natural one. Sometimes we have these long streets. It's a little bit harder to organize them. So I agree with Sue, it should be grouped together. But depending upon where you live, if you got wherever the dead end is, you start there and work back to the main thoroughfare. That's a natural way to do it because you have something in common. You guys all have to compete for that same space while the fire trucks come up and you get out. That's just to me a common sense way to try to organize a neighborhood.
And one of the ways you might get a buy-in too is to talk to your neighbors, and somebody mentioned this before, who will need help out. We have she just recently was moved out by her sons, but we had a 96-year-old neighbor next door who didn't drive. And the neighbor up above her is a woman my age who weighs 90 pounds and can barely walk. So when we have red flag days, or during, well, all year is fire season, but when it's looking worse, we keep our go bags by our front door with a little note on top of to grab the computer, grab my father's photo, and take Helen. So one way that you might get some buy-in is to say, you know, Mrs. Jones will need help. Who can get her out and who's the backup? Put it that way that you're helping each other save each other too. You know, it is one of the 4 areas that you have to describe in your action plan is evacuation and preparedness. So you could also use that perhaps as we have to help each other get out, because she can't drive, he can't walk. Who's gonna load him into their car and get him out, So you might approach it something like that also.
I want to second that, Sue. That's a really, really good point. We put flyers in everybody's mailboxes and talked about evacuation. And we heard, we sent emails, and a woman responded who was a new neighbor. She just purchased a house. We didn't know them. And she said, I'm legally blind. If my husband isn't home, please somebody help me get out. And if we didn't make that effort, we wouldn't know. Like, it's kind of a remote kind of house up in the hills. And we were just all grateful to know that she was there. And we've invited them, to different things, and they haven't showed up yet, but we know. And we all felt better just knowing.
Thank you. Patty, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, just as an example, we had a house that has a huge oak tree that was overgrown, and they did some trimming, and then the branches just sat there for many months, and essentially it created a larger hazard. But rather than think of them as non-responsive, we asked if they wanted our help. And so they were one of the first neighbors to have the little green bin brigade. And it took like 2 afternoons, maybe 3, to, with clippers and so forth. And they were really humbled and grateful for it. And they have since kind of taken off and done their own work now. So I think there's been some softening of judgment among neighbors to neighbors about, our respective yards and what needs to be done through that process of just reaching out and offering not only who needs to escape in a fire, but who needs help to clear the vegetation from their home.
Thank you.
We're not part of an HOA, so I can't respond to that part of it.
Yeah. Marianne's asking, can you legally hand put flyers in mailboxes? No, actually. You can deliver it to their doors, but not inside in the mailbox. I would like to add actually that for those of you who want to become FireWise, the city and the county are willing to provide chipper if it's organized and needed and, demands the work. So we are fortunate to have that offer from them to encourage us to become FireWise. We don't have our own chipper yet, but if you organize big group work, you can take advantage of that. And hopefully if different FireWise groups coordinate together, we may even get more, like, I don't know, dumpster. I think you guys did it, Patty, right? You organized you received a free dumpster?
We had 3 loads of dumpsters, 90
Wow.
foot or 30 foot, 90 square. It was, that was what kept us busy this summer. But that was through fire safe funding. So we had tree trimming and all sorts of stuff going on, good stuff. And it was a huge boost to our morale, something that we have tried to tackle for years with the landowner, and ended up finding the money and helping out on our own. So you just don't take no for an answer.
Very good. Thank you very much. I have a question for Marc and Susan. How did you spread FireWise so quickly? I mean, it's starting 4 years ago from 0 and then getting to 3,000. What's the secret to your success?
Melanie Light.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry?
Her name is Melanie Light. Susan,
Oh,
we had this person who just jumped into it and just encouraged a lot of people. And there's a lot of people. We also have a very, very progressive fire district. You probably heard of Chief Dave Winokur. He's really put a lot of focus in fire prevention, not firefighting. And he just, the combination of Dave Winokur and Melanie and a lot of other people just got engaged. But I give credit to those people to get it going. A lot of us just sort of have followed along, and that's why we have as many homes involved, is because of the people seeing ahead. We have, I'm going to stop there.
No, don't stop there. We're starting our campaign. We need ideas. What did they specifically do? The
You
fire
really
chief
need to
or Melanie?
partner with your fire district, and the
Mhm.
comment about you're worried, the neighbors are worried about the fire department's gonna come and they're gonna see problems. You gotta get the fire district to get out there and show people. It's an education outreach program. Work and partner with your fire district to show them, hey, this is what you need to do. You don't have to do it all at once, but you need to start understanding as a homeowner and as a neighborhood, what you need to do to be able to, reduce your risk of wildfire. And as that grows over time, you'll get into more people. One thing we've seen is, a couple homes do some work and all of a sudden the next door neighbor's like, hey, that looks a lot better. And then they talk to each other. It's like, well, it wasn't that hard. Or we have an example of what Patti said. A neighbor had terrible property. We just went up there and said, do you need some help? And the response was, yes, I don't know what to do. So we helped them. And so the whole thing about just getting to know your neighbors is, if you can find a way to get to know your neighbors and figure out how to help each other, it will give you a lot of benefits. And I'll repeat what Susan said, jump in. This is a good program. It's a great way to work as a community. No one's going to do it for you. The majority of it needs to be done by the people who live there and your neighbors. And you might as well jump in and be the straw that stirs the drink that makes it happen.
And don't be intimidated. It's start small. It's a very grassroots thing. Start small with your own house, and then talk to your neighbors, and then offer your help to those neighbors, and then offer them, start the conversation about FireWise. Like, take 10 giant steps backwards and think, oh my gosh, I want to save my insurance. I want to save my house, and I'm going to do this work. And then invite your neighbors to join you. It's not intimidating. It's not authoritarian. It's been a delightful experience, actually. I'm so proud of it. But Melanie worked like a dog. My friend Melanie, we had somebody that was so exceptional that really, really kicked it off, and we all benefited from it. So I'm grateful.
Very good. Thank you very much. We're almost towards the end of our time. Anybody else wants to add anything before we close?
I would like to say something really quickly.
Go
If you have a neighbor, we don't have an HOA, we have a neighborhood council, and we're already working on a lot of different issues here. I don't know if those of you had in Richmond, do we have people here in the city of Richmond?
Yes,
Okay.
most of us are.
Right. Yeah, we had the Love Your Block grant, which we were able to use for some cleanup, and we're having our second green cleanup with a dumpster, and we were able, through our grant, we got a mini grant.
Wonderful. And that was up to 5,000, right?
We got $4,998 up
Wow.
to 5,000. Yeah. And anyway, so we've had one cleanup that we filled up a very large dumpster that we rented through Republic Services. And also we have a Ready Together group that is working on radio communication and identifying neighbors. And we have a very well-established neighborhood council that, we're working on membership there as well. So if you've got something in place, you don't have to start from scratch. You can, build on that, which is what we're kind of hoping to do, and exploring the FireWise to see if it's something that we want to add on to what we're going to do, or ease into it once, because we're already gathering people's names, what their needs are, the household makeup and things like that. So build on what you've got, I would think. It sounds like it to me. I'm new to this.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Sue, for providing email address. When I send a link to the recording, I will include your email address for people to reach out to you if they have questions. I'm sorry?
I have a question. Is there a way to get a pamphlet that we can hand out to our neighborhood? We do have a neighborhood where we all know each other's information for contacting, but is there something that we could make copies of and give out to the neighborhood?
and how to harden your homes and so forth.
Yes.
That's a very good question. Anybody has an answer?
Well, actually, when we started our neighborhood, it was just the beginning of COVID. And we didn't go out, so I mailed letters to 94 homes, 93 homes. But FireWise has two, well, they have a lot of good information, but they have this one pamphlet. I don't know if you can see it. It's called How to Prepare Your Home for Wildfires. And then they have another one, Taking Control of Your Wildfire Risk, which talks about the FireWise organization. And then they have a really large, nice one that talks about home hardening and it's called Reducing Wildfire Risk. I know you can't read it, but it says reduce. And with everything to do with diagrams on how to fix your home. So once you become, you get these free from FireWise once you're a member, once you have a FireWise neighborhood. I don't know if they would give them to you ahead, but I have a few extras if anybody wanted to. And actually the ones that says how to prepare your home for wildfires does come in Spanish too.
Yeah, this is the
Thank
ones you can get for free in 550s. And they're nice, they're small. They're what I wish I could get was the ones that Sue was just holding up, the great big ones that actually have some rather helpful diagrams. This is
Yes.
this is, I think, good. It's an introduction. So
Yeah.
this is what I plan on, like knocking on doors and handing to my neighbors just to see if I can get somebody to say
Contra
they'll do
Costa
something.
County, we had El Cerrito had their 4th of July celebration this year again, and we had a booth. And Contra Costa County's emergency preparedness thing, my husband went to Martinez and picked them up. They have a nice pamphlet too that's free. And they also threw in a whole bunch of pens. But
Nice.
but
Actually,
but I will look for, if you email me, or I can tell you, I think it's under the Contra Costa Sheriff's Department. They have a really good pamphlet for preparing for emergencies that is free. And they're really happy for you to pass them out. So that might be something else too, just to catch your neighbors' attentions. And one other thing I wanted to mention is that I don't know, I hope all of you are already signed up for Contra Costa County's community warning system. Whether you're in a FireWise neighborhood or not, you all need to be on it. Do you guys know about that, the CWS? You go to cwsalerts.com. Contra Costa County has a warning system. You register your phones for it, and they have Zone Haven now. I don't know if you know about Zone Haven, has divided the cities into zones, so they can now say Zone 1 leave now, Zone 2 and 3 be ready to go in an hour's. But they will never tell you not to evacuate, but they will tell you when to evacuate or when to be prepared. Everybody in Contra Costa County should be signed up for the community warning system, because not only because of wildfires, but the refineries, if on this side of the hill, you've had shelter in place. If Chevron goes up, or that General Chemical went up and we were sheltered in place. Or earthquake, you need to be signed up for CWS and make sure that all your neighbors and your families are. And even if you have families outside of Contra Costa County, they would get the notice too that you guys are evacuated. So
thank you.
and then I tell everybody to keep your charged cell phones by your bedside at night, because how many people during wildfires were evacuated at 2 and 3 in the morning? A lot. If your phone's sitting in your family room, it doesn't do you a lot of good. So keep it, and it has a 925 area code number, so you can put it on when you put your phone on do not disturb, you can add that to it's okay to notify me number. So everybody sign up for cwsalerts.com. That's really important to get your neighbors to do that too.
Thank you very much, Sue. I just remembered I have tons of those brochures. If anybody wants them, let me know. I'll be happy to deliver.
You can also get those free from the sheriff's office too.
Yes, I received them actually. I asked them, I got them for this specific purpose. And now that you mentioned, I remembered, excuse my memory.
Could I just mention this one from the city of Richmond? It's
Yes.
16 pages.
Yeah,
And
Thank you.
can
That's
get
a
it from
good
the
one
city
too.
of Richmond.
yeah, El Cerrito and Kensington Fire and Police did that too. Yeah,
Also, there's firesafemarin.org. Marin is kind of the Cadillac of everything with fire safety. They've been
Yep.
doing this for years and years. And they have everything that you could possibly imagine about preparation, hardening, create a yard, readying the community. You could download anything. It's all free. It's called Fire Safe Marin.
and also Oakland Fire Safe Council is pretty good with that too.
Mhm.
The other good resource, if you just want to watch things, is the University of Nevada, Reno Extension. They have some excellent brochures and information out. They have one of the best most complete evacuation preparedness lists that I've seen. You can get that from them free, or they'll send one and then you can copy them. And they also have this really good pamphlet. It's online, it's free, but you can download it if you want and print it. It's called Wildfire Home Retrofit Guide. Wildfire Home Retrofit Guide. If you Google that, it tells you almost everything you need to do to retrofit an older house for home hardening. They are an excellent, it's called Living with, well, just go to the UNR extension, and also they're in conjunction with Living with Fire in Tahoe. So they have a lot of great information there too, and it's all free.
Thank you very much. We're out of time and late. Pam, can you make it very quick, please? Pam, you have your hand raised. Do you have a question? Unmute yourself and make it very quick, please. Maybe not. Okay, if you could kindly please, Susan and Sue, the website you suggested, email them to me. I'll include it on our website, and I can actually include it in the next email I send to the community. I would like to sincerely thank you all for being here tonight, especially the speakers, Sue, Marc, Susan, and Patti, who had to leave us earlier. Thank you so much, and I'll send the link to everyone. Have a good night.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Night, thank you.
Bye, everybody.